Hello and welcome to a brand new episode, double episode, I should say, of the Comic Hall. I'm your host, Dylan Lang, and I am here today to do two episodes of my comic show, The Comic Hall, before I do a live episode of my other show, Dylan Knows. I missed last week for a couple of reasons. Just a rough week and just a rougher weekend, busy weekend, whatever. But regardless, I missed it. But we're going to cover it this week. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I will go with last week's stuff first. There's this box. There we go. I will go with last week's stuff first and then this week's stuff after that. So just in case there's any, because you got to read one of the comics I have in here, you have to read before the others. And also at the same time, there's not a lot from last week. So last week's haul was this big right here. So we're going to deal with that one first. So we'll do that real quick. These are all books that came out last week. You can probably, at most comic stores, you can probably find these still on the shelf, whatever copies they have left. They usually move them from the coming or new this week to the monthly rack. Most comic stores that I've been in at least 3 to 4, actually more than that. I've been in a ton of comic book stores, and all of them have one of these things where you have the new this week, and then you have about 3 months to 4 months worth of the older books up on the shelf as well before they get taken to the back order shelves. That way it gives you a chance to get caught up on stuff. Like, if an issue 2 came out and you missed issue 1 for whatever reason, or you were looking at the books and you saw issue 2 up there and you looked through, it's like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I said, well, I can't buy it. No, yeah, actually you can. If you go over to the wall over there, there's issue number 1, so you can get both issues. And it's a way for them to clean out their inventory before they put stuff in back order or return it or whatever. So make some extra money. So this is last week's haul from January 23rd. And I said, not a lot of stuff, some interesting stuff, but not a lot of stuff. First up is probably my favorite comic for a long time now, Batman. This is issue number 63. Tom King, writer, and Mikel Janin, whose artwork I absolutely adore, is doing the artwork on this one as well. This one's a special one for me because we're in the middle of the Nightmare storyline, which is Batman's been captured by his father from the Flashpoint Zone and is being basically kind of tortured with nightmares and memories. This is what would happen if Catwoman and Bruce got married, because that's something that he wants and wanted, and I wanted too, because I thought Tom King did a fantastic job of it. So, and Mikel Janin's artwork is absolutely stunning. And you got John Constantine as his guide through this nightmare. You get some sexy shower time with Bruce and Selina, which is great, and just a wonderful artwork, wonderful storyline, and of course, things are going to go south as they do, and that's that. So check out that. Now, due to scheduling and stuff like that, the next 2 issues of Batman, the ones that are coming out in February, are part of a 4-part storyline with the Flash. So they're going to sort of put Nightmares on hold, and somehow maybe hopefully they'll have a little caption that says this happens before issue 60 of Batman or whatever, and they'll cover that stuff as well. So we'll see what happens. Tom King's not writing the next 2 issues because Joshua Williamson is writing the Flash, is writing the whole 4-part story arc, because it's more of a Flash story that Batman's a part of, but he wanted to cross over with Batman because they'd done it so well earlier in the Batman run from a few years ago, issue 20 to 24, something like that, which introduced, believe it or not, reintroduced Batman's father from the Flashpoint universe. So, but that in turn gives Tom King 2 more issues he's going to write after his 100th episode, because he's only going to stay on the book for 100 issues, and then he has these 2 extra ones that he's going to add because he missed these 2 here. So we'll see what happens. Next up, Brian Michael Bendis, when he came to DC, he was going to make some changes, and he did. He created Wonder Comics. A couple weeks ago, Young Justice #1 came out. Read it. It was pretty good. I like the artwork, but the story still left me a little, okay. But Naomi's the next one, and I haven't read it yet, but this is issue #1, came out last week, so I definitely think you should check this one out. It's written by Brian Michael Bendis with artwork by David F. Walker also is co-writing it with Brian Michael Bendis with art by Jamal Campbell, and it's actually pretty nice artwork. Now, it's a unique story idea, something that Bendis is pretty good at. It's based in a Pacific Northwest town. And I think Bendis is actually from a Pacific Northwest town, so sort of like this. And it follows a seemingly ordinary girl, Naomi, as she ventures through the DC universe, sort of similar to Kurt Busiek's Marvels, but or Astro City for that. This is like, you could call this basically, I guess, Brian Michael Bendis' Astro City, but it looks good. The artwork is nice, and it's a unique take on comics, and more proof that comic books are not just about superheroes. So definitely check Naomi out like that. Kelly Sue DeConnick, who's also from the Pacific Northwest, continues her reign on Aquaman with issue number 44. Kelly Sue DeConnick writer, Robson Roca artwork. So we're continuing the first storyline where Aquaman has amnesia and he's working in some, island town or whatever, and there's probably some sort of romantic thing that he's going to get involved with, and Mara's trying to hunt him down, and there's some weird stuff going on in this little island town. So should be interesting to check that out, because Kelly Sue DeConnick had a really iconic run on Captain Marvel, so which I just found out today is on pace to do about 160 million opening weekend, which is fantastic. So I don't know if this was just because it's delayed or whatever, but Shazam number 2 has a Christmas cover, which is about a month late. It's written by Jeff Johns. It's got to be because the artist is completely different. It's Marco Santucci. So the artist on this, I forget what his name is, but he definitely is not. He did the art for the first issue, but isn't doing it for the second one. So I would have to assume it's got to be some kind of issue why this Christmas cover is out now and not last month. So we'll see. With Shazam, the movie coming out soon, that's probably going to be a big hit soon. The reason why I'm doing last week's stuff first is because of this issue. Justice League number 16, Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV are writing a really in-depth, connective Justice League storyline, and this ends, I think, a new one of the new storyline, but it's going to connect to the Justice League Annual, which I will show you, that came out this week. And so you need to read this first before you read Justice League Annual. But Scott Snyder, James Tynion, Steven Segovia, and Jim Chung artwork. So you get a little bit of both, and you get a little exposure onto Hawk World, and you get in this issue you get a little more interesting background into John Jones's Martian Manhunter. So something unique is happening there. And there's Starman, who Tom Lyle, who did the artwork when the book came out with Roger Stern back in the 90s, is from Maryland. So that was one of my favorite books. And so it's good to see his character back in there. So that's it for DC's for last week. Last week's Marvel, there's not many, but Guardians of the Galaxy number 1. Obviously, the movies are so popular, but now they have a new number 1 with a new team. Now, don't get too excited. This is not the new team, and I'm kind of disappointed because I wanted to see Darkhawk on this team, but he's not on this team. This is just who's going to be on the Guardians of the Galaxy team out of these people. So we find out later on. It's written by Donny Cates, with art by, where's that? Who did the art? Jeff Shaw did the artwork. It's part 1 of 6. Sets up the new Guardians of the Galaxy. Thanos is dead, and there's a new Thanos out there right now. But the artwork is actually not bad. It's pretty nice. I kind of like the artwork, and I don't know much about Donny Cates because I haven't been reading a lot of Marvel lately. But I figured this is a number 1. I saw Darkhawk on the cover. I was like, ooh, Darkhawk, maybe he'll be on the team. And it's like, no, it didn't. I will give you the team. Spoiler, I will give you the team thing because it's done in the first issue because that's who you're going to be following. So the Guardians of the Galaxy will be Moondragon, Cosmic Ghost Rider, Groot, Peter Quill, I don't know who that is, and Beta Ray Bill. And that's the new Guardians of the Galaxy right there. So no Darkhawk, no Silver Surfer, no Guardian, no Adam Warlock, no Nova. So, oh well, but it's, a number 1, so why not absolutely check it out if you like the movies. It's a different take on the characters, but hey, why not go for it and see how well you like it. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 2, written by Tom Taylor, not to be confused with Tom King, and art by Juan Cabell. Another Spider-Man book. I like Spider-Man. This is the third one. Peter David originally wrote this series when it first came out years back, but now Tom Taylor has written it back, so we'll see what happens. That's it for Marvel. Independence, I only have 2 from last week also, both #1s. If you're a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, Boom Studios' new Buffy, look at Buffy #1 is... No, new take on Buffy. Issue #1 is out last week. It's a different take on Buffy, so it's not the Buffy you're used to. So it's not a continuation of the series. It's a retelling of the series, which gives it a chance. Sort of like, it's sort of like this new Star Trek movies where they retconned, they made it an alternate dimension. It's like an alternate dimension Buffy. It's written by Jordi Belair with art by Dan Mora. So you get, your Willow and your Xander and stuff like that, but you're going to get a whole bunch of different characters and different scenarios and stuff like that, and takes them back to high school. So, hey, it's Buffy, and I'm going to be all in on that for a little while until I don't like it. So we'll see what happens. And finally, this was just an impulse buy because Derek Robertson, I like his artwork, and it's a good take. It's Oliver, #1, based on, it's a futuristic, apocalyptic version of Oliver Twist. Don't know if that was written by Gary Whitta with art by Derek Robertson. It's good to see Derek Robertson's nice artwork back on display. And a post-apocalyptic take on Oliver Twist is always interesting. So I'll take a look at that and see how that is. So that was last week's books. So all these books available last week. So go to your comic store if you saw some stuff you like there. I mean, a lot of #1s. If you saw a lot of stuff you like there, go to the comic book store and check the new books list, not the new this week books. There's probably a huge what do you call it, shelf of these things. So definitely check it out. Now we're into the nitty gritty. Granted, it is Sunday, but here are the books that came out this week, and you can probably still purchase them in the new this week until Tuesday. There's a lot more this week because it is the first of the month. Basically, it was technically the last of the month, but it was also kind of the first of the month. Not really, it's still last of the month, but there's some interesting takes in here. As I told you, I love how Tom King's been working Batman. Well, he's also writing Heroes in Crisis, which is a interesting book to say the least. #5, Tom King, art by Clayman. So he's brought you, this is the one that's brought you some sexy superheroes. There's some more sexy Batgirl. Here's some more sexy Lois Lane. And yes, you did see the Wonder Twins. Yes, they are a new book that's coming out in a couple weeks. They're sexy Harley. So Clayman knows how to draw some sexy ladies. So this is definitely a unique book, and it's a different take. There's my boy Adam Strange. It's good to see him as well. So worth a check out, and it's a unique take on superheroes as well, because superheroes suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder like normal people do, and that is a book that covers that. Next up, we have issue 997 of Detective Comics, The Countdown to 1000. Peter Tomasi has taken over the writing of this book, and I absolutely love it. Doug Mahnke does the artwork, which I also love as well. Inks by Christian Alme and Mark Irwin. And Tomasi is pulling out all the stops, making an interesting storyline that's going to lead to issue 1000. So we've got issue 1000 be coming out in March because we're going to get 2 issues of Detective in February, and then you'll get issue 1000 in March. So probably the week of Dawn's birthday, actually, my wife's birthday. So there's that. Next up, we have Action Comics number 1007. Brian Michael Bendis writer, and he drafts Steve Epting to do the artwork for it, which I love Steve Epting's artwork. So it's good to see him back on a regular book, even if it might just be the storyline. And we will see what happens. I haven't read a lot of Bendis' stuff yet, but I've heard it's definitely a unique take on Superman, and I don't know if I'm a big fan of it or not, but we'll see what happens. So Wonder Woman number 63 begins G. Willow Wilson's second story arc on Wonder Woman. This one has artwork by Emanuela Lapuccino and inks by Ray McCarthy. G. Willow Wilson is really getting into the mythology of Wonder Woman, which is fantastic because that's one of my favorite aspects of her character. So Wonder Woman's this new story arc is going to have her dealing with mythological creatures, which are going to be wreaking havoc in the DCU. So I think it's a great story idea, and I can't wait to read it. Next up, we have Justice League Odyssey #5. Again, a book that I wish Stephen Sedgwick was still on, but you get a nice Stephen Sedgwick cover. It's written by Joshua Williamson, and it is part of the James Tynion, Scott Snyder remake of the DC Universe. Joshua Williamson is also a part of that as well. Artwork is by Carmine Di Giandomenico, who is a solid artist, one of those you can see all the time. Is a good fill-in artist. Or sometimes they'll give them a complete series or whatever, but it's a definitely. If you don't remember, the reason why with Stephen Sedgwick was the first 2 issues of Justice League Odyssey were somehow deleted by DC after they were turned in, and so Joshua Williamson and Stephen Sedgwick had to redo the whole series again, and then by that point, Stephen Sedgwick wanted to move on, because he didn't really, I guess, feel like redoing that. And he had an idea for something. He pitched something to, I think he pitched something to DC, and they accepted it. If they wouldn't have accepted it, he probably would have stayed on. But it's a book he wants to do, so I'm actually can't wait to see what that is. So good on that. Speaking of Joshua Williamson, he also wrote The Flash. Flash has a couple books out this week. You're gonna want to read this before you read the next one. This is written by Joshua Williamson with art by Minkyu Jung, which ends the most recent story arc, and it's going to lead to another story arc that's going to appear in the annual. This is a connection to the Heroes in Crisis book, which I showed you earlier. The Flash is also with Joshua Williamson doing the Justice League Odyssey and being part of the rewrite of DC Universe. The Flash is another book you want to check out because it's working on that, which leads into the Flash Annual #2, written by Joshua Williamson, of course. And art by Scott Collins, who is, I guess you could basically kind of really call Scott Collins one of the more iconic Flash artists, because he's been drawing the Flash forever. He's drawn it on this new series. He drew it during Jeff Johns' run on it. He drew it during Mark Waid's run on it. So it's a very unique take on things, and he's a guy that, okay, you want to keep drawing the Flash, keep drawing the Flash. Just has to do with connected to the Heroes in Crisis storyline. So read the Flash issue first and then read the annual. Speaking of annuals, and speaking of Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV, their Justice League annual, that's why I did issue #16 from last week first. You read that, it leads into this storyline, which is, as I said, continuing their big, massive story arc. It's written by Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV with art by Daniel Sempere and inks by Juan Albarrán. So in this case, the Justice League is trying to fix the source wall, which they broke, and the bad guys are saying, no, we don't want you to do that. So it's a whole big thing about that. And as I said, that's what's leading to this whole big rewrite of the DC Universe and stuff like that. So they've got a massive story going on right now, and it's continuing. I think they said it's like a 2-year window, so we'll see what happens in a couple of years. That's it for DC for this week. Marvel this week, we have Doctor Strange #10, which is if you used all the numbering from all the other Doctor Strange books, which I hate when Marvel does, is because you're not going to go to 401. You're going to go to number 11 now. But this is issue 400. It gives them an opportunity to do a multiple size issue and charge more to pay for it. And people like me will pay for it because we're morons. Anyway, Mark Waid writer, art by Jesus Saez, Kevin Nolan and Jim Campbell, Butch Geist and Carlos Lopez, Tom Palmer, and Daniel Acuna. So you get a main storyline which connects to the story that Mark Waid is telling, with art by Jesus Saez. And then when that story is over, it leads to a couple of, with the, being 400th issue, they're doing some sort of special, connections. This is a Butch Geist artwork. Good to see him back doing stuff. And then Kevin Nolan, who used to be a Doctor Strange artist in the old days, come back to doing him as well. And then you have Tom Palmer's 2-page spread. And then you have the Daniel Acuna storyline. So, if you like Doctor Strange and you've been following it and stuff like that, it's worth a pickup. It is $5.99. It is the most expensive book out this week. So Yeah, why not? This was $4.99. I didn't really like the series, but I had to end it because I'm a completist. This is issue 6 of the Marvel Knights 20th anniversary. Now I'm done. I don't have to buy any more of this. So if another one comes out, I'm not going to buy it. Again, Donny Cates from Guardians of the Galaxy, writer Kim Jacinto and Travel Foreman, artists Jim Jacinto and Richard Friend, inkers. And this just ends the 20th anniversary of Marvel, Knights, the mini series that they had, which gives all these characters together in their Marvel Knights personas, and that's how we go with that. Exiles number 12 is the last issue of the series as well, which is a shame, but Exiles is a good series, and eventually maybe it'll come back. Saladin Ahmed and Javier Rodriguez did every issue. Alvaro Lopez inker, so they wrap up their 12-issue. You can call it, for the most part, it's called a 12-issue mini-series or limited series. We'll see if it comes back, but it's such a great idea. Alternate dimension superheroes fighting in alternate dimensions, so we'll see what happens. But Saladin Ahmed is writing a bunch of different comics, so he needs a little break probably. So that's done. Amazing Spider-Man number 14, new story arc by Nick Spencer with art by Chris Bachalo, which is always fun to check out because Bachalo's artwork is insane. But it's a good. So Spencer's storyline has actually been a lot better than I thought it would be. But fantastic. So keeping up on that. Captain America number 7 begins a new story arc as well with new artist. Tanisha Coates is still the writer. Art is by Adam Kubert. So we get a new Captain America storyline, and we'll see what happens. West Coast Avengers number 7. I think this also begins a new story arc, written by Kelly Thompson with art by Danielle Di Nicuola. Reintroduces Marvel Boy to the Marvel Universe, and West Coast Avengers has always been a fascinating series, so good on that as well. And then that was it for Marvel. From Independence, we have Word number 1. Kurt Pyers and Antonio Fuso, about a guy who's an immortal who goes around solving vicious crimes, about mutant monsters and all types of weird stuff. But he is immortal, and he basically takes on things. It sounded like an interesting idea, so I'll stick with it for the while. I'll see, but I don't know. Vampirella, Roses for the Dead number 3, written by Christina Deke Linsner, who is artist Joseph Michael Linsner's wife. So they bring their storytelling abilities to Vampirella. That's the main reason why I'm getting it, because I like stuff like that, and especially Joseph Michael Linsner's, and I like stuff like that too. Joseph Michael Linsner's take on stuff. Ooh, there's an even better one. So good on that. That one's a mini series that's going to be ending up really soon. Lone Ranger number 4, written by Mark Russell, with art by Rob Q. Continuing this storyline, Mark Russell is the one who did the Flintstones and Snagglepuss Chronicles. It's his take on Lone Ranger. His take on Red Sonja comes out, I think, next week, so we'll be getting a picture of that as well. And his take on Lone Ranger has been interesting, so I always like the John Cassaday covers. It's good. And finally, we have Animosity Evolution number 10, Marguerite Bennett, Eric Gapster, about a world where animals have become sentient, and this details how they took over the world. The Animosity comic proper is like a 2 or 3 years later sort of scenario where the world has changed. This is all the stuff that's happened right after the animals became sentient. And that is it for this week's Comic Haul. That's the stuff that came out this week. The stuff I did earlier in the show came out last week. Hopefully, I will get back to a normal schedule starting this upcoming week. As I said, I think Mark Russell's Red Sonja is coming up this week. The Batman crossover with the Flash is coming up this week as well. And I'm trying to remember if there's, I think maybe the Wonder Twins might be out also. That's also Mark Russell too. So it might be like a Mark Russell week. So we'll see what happens. So we'll see. Definitely come back here sometime next week and you'll see the comics then. Good little comic book store. You still got, it's still Sunday, so go out there before the Super Bowl, pick up some comics, read some comics for the Super Bowl, or if you're not interested in the Super Bowl, read the comics instead of watching the Super Bowl. So have fun, take care. Stay tuned for a brand new episode of Dylan Knows coming up very shortly.